Biological age has a number of indicators, but the most important one is VO2 max. The American Heart Association indicates it's the biggest factor in assessing your biological age.
Rowena Gates.
Rowena Gates.
Rowena Gates?
Rowena Gates. She's the co-founder of Eng3 Corporation and driving force behind NanoVi technology.
NanoVi.
Which is helping athletes, wellness professionals, and everyday people enhance cellular function, recover faster, and fight oxidative stress at the source.
VO2 max is important for longevity and also for athletes for performance.
And with the NanoVi, I'm able to recover, to feel fresh every day.
The biggest thing there is recovery, faster recovery. Juan Archuleta was a great one. He was an MMA fighter. He could go into the ring super high energy and super calm. One study that's double-blind placebo-controlled shows 17% less blood lactate after heavy exertion. It's huge if you're in a lactate-producing sport.
With a background in both business and wellness,
And she's studied for years.
Rowena has been at the forefront of biohacking and regenerative health for decades.
A study showed that 7.8% improvement in VO2 max in one session.
And her work is transforming how we approach performance, longevity, and well-being.
The idea is don't shove more oxygen in. Utilize what's in the normal air.
Today we are going to dive into Rowena's journey from her early fascinations with proteins.
Every biochemical process in the body relies on proteins to function.
We'll also get into the science behind NanoVi, how it works, and practical ways we can all support better cellular health and longevity.
If you just make everything in the cell work better, you create that environment, every other thing you do will work better. With brain function, it's very noticeable difference. If there's something that helps you repair that damage in the brain, keeps you fit, makes you sharper, clearer, that's where I think it should be.
In water science to building a business that's changing lives around the world.
I feel like the most important thing to do is to lift others. They can go out and you can kind of get this multiplier effect. If I help 3 people that help 3 people that help 3 people, that's what I think is the most important thing to be doing.
Hello and welcome to Wellness is Life podcast. I'm your host Natalia Naila, and today I'm thrilled to be sitting down with Rowena Gates. Rowena, it's so nice to see you here in my studio here in Hollywood. I mean, I know you for 3 years, personally about 2 years, but 3 years ago I bought your first device, and it was my first biohacking device in this, longevity space, when I saw you at the Dave Asprey conference here in Beverly Hills. And when I saw you speak, I was like, wow, this is something I have to have it. It was one of the most expensive devices that I had till these days. I just bought another one that it was, a little more money, but it was worth every penny. I'm using it every day. My family is using it. I have some clients in the desert that they use it as well. And it's just such a huge change. So I can't wait to talk to you about what's happening, why is this device is changing people's mitochondria, and all about folding proteins. So let's talk about how did you get into this business, and for some of them who doesn't know you, can you tell us about your work at Eng3 and
Sure.
why is it so important?
Absolutely. It's so nice to be here. We've been trying to arrange this for years, or at least a year.
Yeah, for at least a year.
So I started, I was working with my partner, and we were representing technology out of Germany. And then he started to recognize an opportunity with what became NanoVi by understanding the science, more and more digging into the science, understanding how things worked. And so we started the patent process, and then the compliance and registration processes and so on. And so he was really his name's Hans Eng, which is the name Eng3. And he's the inventor. He innovated this device, and it's a wonderful device. You're right. And then I was supporting in all these other roles. So I came out of being a high-tech entrepreneur. I was doing business to business, e-commerce. And I kind of shifted into this, and then I loved it because it helps people. And that's so much more rewarding than what I was doing before.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I remember I wrote a blog on my website about this device because I loved it so much for using it for 6 months. And then you reached out to me. You're like, oh my God, who's this girl? Who's this blog? We chatted with you. And you're like, this is one of the best blogs anybody wrote about our company or about our device.
You know why? One reason it was so good. First of all, it was a really good article with beautiful photographs. It was really well done. But in addition to that, most of the other writing was done by me, and it really wasn't very good. And you have a sort of that magical way of speaking to people that aren't necessarily steeped in science. And I come at it from too much information, basically.
Yeah, so I wrote it very simple, the way I user-friendly as me as a girl who, wanted to explain what it does for you and why it's so important.
And you had some really great results also that you reported, which we love seeing because we love results on individuals, but we also love the ones that are studies that are formalized, which is
biological age, right? Reversing your...
That is one of many.
One of them. Okay, so let's talk about that. What else?
Okay. So biological age has a number of indicators, but the most important one is VO2 max in assessing your biological age for a whole number of reasons. The American Heart Association, it indicates it's the biggest factor. And VO2 max is important for biological age, for longevity, and also for athletes for performance, what they're capable of. And so you want to increase your VO2 max. And a wonderful metabolic testing company called Panoe did a study with our device, and they showed that 7.8% improvement in VO2 max in one session.
Wow.
Which they were not used to measuring things that would actually move the needle in one session. That's not normal.
Interesting. Because I've tested with them as well. And my VO2 max when I was using your device constantly was really amazing.
Yeah. And it's so what they're doing, what this metabolic testing is quite involved in. It's a breath test with a mask. And it's theirs isn't actually that hard to use. In the past, I've used them that were really not comfortable. But they have all these indicators of metabolic health that they're getting from the exchange of oxygen and CO2 in breath. And another thing they showed was an 11% increase in the respiratory exchange ratio, which is showing the utilization of oxygen. So the idea is don't shove more oxygen in. Utilize what's in the normal air, and then you're in really good shape.
Right.
Basically.
So this is basically the device, the beautiful NanoVi, and it's so slick. It's really nice, and I love how it has these beautiful colors. You call them like chakra colors that they can be exchangeable. But let's talk about what is this device. And you always talk in your talks that I've seen you a lot on different conferences about folding the proteins. What are the proteins, and why do they have to fold for mitochondria to upgrade and DNA to repair for the oxidative stress?
So proteins, and this is just like the very basics of proteins, but we tend to think of protein we eat, and that's important because there's about half your amino acids you have to get from your food. But the proteins that you eat get shredded up into amino acids and used to create your body, all your tissue, your blood, as hemoglobin's a protein, insulin's a protein. Most of your hormones are proteins except for the sex hormones. The antibodies are proteins, and they make up everything. And the only way to do repair or regeneration in the body is with proteins. That they are what go in and fix the damage from oxidative stress. So proteins are so critical, and they're a chain of amino acids, but the very last thing before they can work is they have to fold into a complex three-dimensional shape. So they start out as a string, and they have to bond together in different places to create this shape. And that's called protein folding. And it's so important that the prediction of folded proteins won a Nobel Prize into 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
By who?
It's so important, and most medical science is based on trying to understand protein, the folded shape of proteins and how they can be manipulated. And you hear about turning on receptors or inhibitors or all these different things are ways to interact with the protein to try to have a desired medical effect.
So once the proteins are all folded in a beautiful stack, what happens then?
So once it's folded, it can be really complex, and you can have sort of subcomponents that group together to make an even bigger, like hemoglobin's a big protein that's made up of 4 of these little clusters or little shapes. And so they arrange themselves according to what your body's instructions are. And so this is the epigenetic piece. But what's needed, a base protein might be tweaked in this direction or that direction depending on the immediate need of the body. Oh, we need an immune response over here. That's going to create a different reaction.
Right. So, and it helps the oxidative stress to repair and clean up itself.
So if there's a repair to be done, you have the acute inflammation that's going to go in and, protect it from pathogens and so on. And you get a bit of red and swelling, and that can be part of the healing process. And so your body's instructions, if there's a wound, there's going to be a high priority to take care of that.
Yeah. And if, let's say, our proteins are all scattered around, our DNA can be repaired, we get into inflammation. Right. That's where all the autoimmune disease starts and everything else, right? So how this particular device, I know you have to breathe this through this amazing cannula that you put in, and then put it around your nose. So you'll have sessions anywhere from half an hour that you suggest to whatever you want. I've heard even one of your podcasts was Dave Pascoe, who uses actually at night. He sleeps with it. What would be your recommendation in a daily use? How many, is it 30 minutes enough or like an hour?
It really depends on your condition and what you're doing. So if you're exerting yourself, and by that I mean physically or mentally, so if you're concentrating for 3 hours, that's like running a marathon.
Yeah.
It's a lot of oxidative damage, and there's a lot of repair to be done. It's burning a lot of oxygen. And so it really depends on the person and what they're doing, but and their age and so on, their condition. I use it, and this is just sort of for myself, I put it beside my desk when I'm working, and I run it for an hour. And if I haven't gotten up and moved around when the thing turns off, that's what I do, is I move.
Okay, yeah.
And so it can be a movement timer. And then I might start it again and do another hour later in the day. Okay. But one thing I always do that I learned from Kayla Barnes, one of our customers, and she's a brain coach person, is to use it right before I go to sleep. And the 20 minutes before you go to sleep, I can notice that I get deeper sleep.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too. All my modalities with your or other devices that I have, when I do them right before I go to sleep, I look at my Aura ring the next day, the best sleep I get. Like the best REM, the best deep, like quality sleep.
Yeah, and I was surprised because I already used it a lot, but it's just that what we've got is a study we haven't released yet, but it's finished, and it's highly significant improvement in the autonomic nervous system. And so if you drop a person out of stress mode and then you build their parasympathetic system, you're absolutely set up to go to have a good night's sleep. And that's why it doesn't matter if you used it during the day or not. That last little bit before sleep with resetting the autonomic nervous system is a really great idea.
So exactly what is it? Are we breathing some special oxygen? So this is how you do it? You just put it around your ears?
You said the magic word. It's special, but it's not oxygen. It's just normal air, which is like 21% oxygen. But you utilize the oxygen better. So people often think of it as an oxygen device. And I mean, if you're using the oxygen better and you feel more energy and your mitochondria is doing better, it sort of acts like extra oxygen, but it's only because your cells are working better, which is wonderful. You just improve utilization, cellular function, and then you have that advantage. Natalia mentioned the colors, and they're decorative. That's not part of the operation of the device. So we're using the bubbling water to create humidity, and the humidity is pulled through the device. Oh, she's playing with the colors. She's bored and she's playing with colors now.
I just wanted to show.
She already knows this. The humidity is going through excitation units inside the device, and inside this it's packed full. And in there it's bombarded with specific wavelengths that can be absorbed by water. So if you think of all your other devices, they go through the water, like red light goes through and it hits the mitochondria or whatever in the cell. All of them go through the water, but we are using wavelengths that are absorbed by the water because we want to change the water droplets in the airstream so they have a different energy state, and that's what's delivered to the body. It hits the mucous membrane, and that energy transfers throughout the water in the body.
And that's how, and then it helps the proteins to
Right,
properly fold, and the whole reaction of mitochondria repair and starts there.
Exactly. And what we're doing is we're creating a better environment for the cell to do its thing. It doesn't override anything. It doesn't impede or interrupt anything.
Right.
But the cellular water is a critical part of the protein folding process. In fact, all proteins are immersed in water. Everything in the cells is immersed in water. So the proteins rely on this energy state in the water, and it's a layer of ordered water, or also called exclusion zone water. But it's a layer of water where the molecules are closely packed together. That layer has to form on the chain of amino acids, and then it has the energy from the water to fold. And so that's what we're doing, is we're just creating a better environment.
So what's one thing you wish more people understood about cellular health?
Oh, okay. I only get one. I would say every biochemical process in the body, which is kind of everything, relies on proteins to function. There's nothing you can put in your body to try to initiate these biochemical processes that doesn't also involve protein functions.
Interesting.
And I think people think, well, it's glutathione. I'm doing a glutathione drip, so that's an antioxidant. It's not a protein. Correct. But that glutathione does nothing without the protein functions that make it effective in the body.
Is any other ways, let's say people cannot afford this device, or some listeners are watching around the world, they're like, hey, I can't get this device. What else would you recommend they can do to help the proteins fold properly and for DNA to repair easily?
The first thing I would love to do is have these devices in shareable situations. And anywhere, it could be a gym, it could be any kind of studio, any of those, if it made it possible for people to access them with just a membership fee or a fee to use it or something, I would love that, because this thing is really well built. It's German engineering. It's Hans Eng, the German engineer. And many, many people can use one device and share it. And that's the easiest way to make it inexpensive.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sharing,
Yeah.
creating.
And then it becomes way less expensive than a lot of substances people take monthly. That all adds up.
Yeah.
But if you can really amortize it over a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. What was the biggest challenge in developing and refining the NanoVi technology?
Well, this might be too revealing. We self-funded. And we'd both done companies before, and I'd done every kind of funding, angel, VC, all this stuff. And we just, made the decision to self-fund it. And so that was always a limiting factor. And it's why your audience doesn't see it on every single corner.
Right. It's
Because those are companies that have put, maybe tens of millions into this big bursting onto the market that we didn't do.
We see a lot of conferences. That's how I learned about it. You speaking in different conferences, and you do a great job.
Oh, that saved me. I get invited to speak, and that's that does help a lot.
It sold me. Listen, it was my first device. I'm like, listen, I wanted to change my cellular level. That's the only thing that I need to do probably right now
I love it
to upgrade myself and reverse my biological age. I'm glad I did it.
I want to point out this wisdom. If you just make everything in the cell work better, you create that environment, every other thing you do will work better. Everything. There's nothing that doesn't benefit from better cellular function.
And everything, yes, you're right.
Then
Once
you
do
invest in this or that, and now you've got a double upside. And so you were very wise.
Oh, thank you so much. Describe the first time you experienced the effects of the nano device when you guys had it in your hands. How did you feel afterward?
Initially, I'm not a person, if I have low energy, I would notice it. But when I'm kind of humming along at high energy, I don't notice, oh, wow, I feel so much better or whatever. But what I noticed was, I have to watch myself, but I noticed my vision improved after I'd been using it for a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And a colleague's like, well, you're reading without your reading glasses. And my eyes got better, but they didn't become perfect. I still use reading glasses, but they've never gotten any worse. And that was a long time ago.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so that was the biggest thing I noticed. And then now if I stop using it, I notice I get tinnitus back, which another personal information people probably don't even want to know. But it really bugs me when I start getting ringing in my ears, and it's like, I've been traveling for 2 weeks.
So it helps you with that too, because I know a lot of people have that.
Well, I'm not weird. This is not a cure for anything.
Right, yeah.
It's just that in my experience, I definitely want to keep using it and not have that happen. It's a great meditation site.
I didn't think about that actually.
Yeah, it's a timer for meditation in a way. And I don't meditate with my eyes open, but if you did, then the bubbling is kind of a good sort of like a candle flickering, it's got a nice thing.
So when people first hear about NanoVi, what's the biggest misconception they have?
That is oxygen.
It's the oxygen.
Because, well, of course they think that because it's got this
Cannula,
tube, which is always used for oxygen.
Right.
And so that's an easy misconception about it. And then after that, people just can't, they keep asking what substance it's delivering. They can't get used to the idea that this is biophysics, not biochemistry. We're not adding a substance. And especially in the United States, we are not used to biophysics and that side of it. In Russia or Germany, they're much more familiar with things that are non-chemical, basically, not a substance.
And let me ask you this. I do have another device at home, which I asked you before. It's the brown gas, the hydrogen machine, which I inhale brown gas. So I switch it back and forth. How it differentiates between the hydrogen and yours?
I love that. I use hydrogen all the time too. I have a machine that will do both brown gas and I think I usually use just molecular hydrogen because with the better oxygen utilization from NanoVi, the Brown's gas, you don't really need the extra oxygen from the Brown's gas, is my logic. But everybody should do what works best.
Yeah.
So molecular hydrogen is a really wonderful antioxidant. It's a scavenger so small that it really takes care of things that nothing else does nearly as good a job, which is why I love it. It's an antioxidant, so it prevents damage. Our device is repairing the damage that the antioxidants miss.
That one is preventing, and this one is repairing.
Now, but it gets even better because our device has a preventative role that's been shown in a published study. Because by helping the proteins stay stable, they're less susceptible to damage from free radicals. And therefore, it prevents the damage. And so what the study found was, compared to a sham device, which is disabled inside, that if it was pre-treated with NanoVi, the proteins did way better with most types of damage just by pre-treating it. And the authors concluded that it was because it has this preventative role. So even though it's not an antioxidant, it can help with prevention, and then it clearly does repair. And to give you an idea, an oxidized protein had a 45% more viable proteins when the real NanoVi device was used compared to the sham device or the controls. 45%
Wow, that's
improvement.
incredible. And I know that a lot of athletes are using your device. How does it help an athlete?
The biggest thing there is recovery, faster recovery, and it's very noticeable to athletes. If they're very tuned in and high performance athletes, they know how long it normally takes to recover.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge difference. And then one thing that kind of surprised me when I did interviews with some Major League Baseball pitchers was the use for sleep.
Oh.
And they were just saying, we do like 162 games a year. One of them was a closing pitcher, so he can be on day after day. They get home late at night after a game, and they're supposed to go to sleep and get up and play the next day. And they're still like tons of adrenaline, they're in their systems, and they're trying to get to sleep.
Yeah.
And so that balancing,
Which we know, I know, now that you're using before you sleep,
so
that gets
just get them settled
better.
down because they're in such an excited state with the game that they'll use it for sleep as well.
So how has your understanding of cellular health influenced your own lifestyle and wellness choices?
Well, I have really made some shifts away from things that are damaging.
Like what?
Personally, am I allowed to say?
Yes, please do.
Well, if clearly diet. I think I already avoided the fracked oils and fried and all of that.
Seed oils.
But I stopped drinking alcohol completely.
Oh, congrats.
Maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Okay.
And
did it make a big difference? Like you're not missing a glass of
it's
French
so
wine?
interesting because I
once in a
loved,
while?
wine with dinner. I really
Yeah.
loved that. But it's funny how little I miss it. I'm amazed at that. But the problem was I couldn't sleep well with
Yeah,
it. And
that's what it is.
Quite a few things would give me headaches, like just one drink, not one beer, and I could get a really bad headache.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I can't even do beer anymore these days because I have a yeast food allergy to it. It's not even allergy, it's like sensitivity, but it stays there for a long time.
Yeah.
And so every time I drink a beer, I get this closing of the throat and kind of like scratching. I'm like, so I'm like,
that's just
oh
not
wow,
good.
I can't do that. But I don't drink that much too. But I've noticed that if I have a glass of wine before I go to sleep, the sleep is racked. It's like you can't sleep well, right? But I've noticed when I'm in Europe and I do have a glass of wine for lunch, that doesn't really affect the sleep.
It's different. It's for some reason it's just different.
Maybe because we're on vacation.
Oh, maybe. I don't want to speculate, but a lot of people notice that.
Yeah, they do. So what else?
Yeah.
What other things that you had to
I'm trying to do better at more movement, and I'm relatively strong, but I am not flexible, which is sort of a body type thing. People can't see, but I'm
you're very
kind of
tall and slim.
But that's no excuse, and that's the biggest thing for me now is to like the physical side of it. And I'm also, with so many people are talking about eating more protein, but I recognized I actually was not eating enough protein.
Right.
And so now I'm trying to amp that up a bit because you don't want muscle loss It's not good.
Yeah, especially when you're going in certain ages, like you need to add more protein. That's what I hear.
I wondered how you were going to say that, especially when you're old. No, but seriously,
nobody's old. We're
could probably be my daughter. I'm way older,
No,
and that's when
beautiful.
you lose muscle mass.
But we all after 40. That's it. After 40, you just
it's all downhill.
Okay, can you explain the differences between the NanoVi Eco, NanoVi Pro, and NanoVi Exo models?
Yes. Okay. So the Exo is the most expensive one. And
which one is this one?
The Exo.
Exo, yeah.
If it has a green swirl.
Yeah, I have an Exo.
Yes. If it has the green swirl, it's an Exo. If you can afford an Exo, it's the way to go because it has, of those excitation wavelengths, it's got 3 different ones. And the one at the high end is a very powerful wavelength for getting the water into the state that we need.
Yeah.
And so it has all 3. Then the Pro has 2 of the 3, and the Eco has both of those, but less excitation units. And so,
will they all do the same things, or
the Eco? I would recommend trying to just save up longer and get the Pro if you can, because it gets it up to a threshold where it's more usable. The Eco you'd have to use for hours to come close to that. And so I was really passionate about trying to keep it affordable, but it's really, it's
and time is
a
money,
trade-off.
Using this, like you said, 20, 30 minutes could be just enough.
We mostly sell this one.
Yeah, I know.
Mostly this one.
People don't have time to really sit there for hours.
Or they want twice the effect in the time they're there,
yeah, that's
right?
true. Do you have a favorite testimonial or success story that stands out?
I have one I have to be very careful with, but by far my most favorite is this beautiful couple, Canadian originally, but living in California. And it was a reversal of the one neurodegenerative disease that no one's ever had a reversal of symptoms in.
Oh, wow.
And she could walk again and talk again and eat like she was, just having to drink everything. And she got back so she could eat food, and then she could eat crunchy, dry food, popcorn, anything.
That's amazing. And how long has she been using that?
She did not notice, her husband didn't notice anything for 3 months. And I said to him, you kept using it for 3 months without noticing anything, And he said, of course, it's a long-term disease, so you don't expect it to happen overnight. And then after that, she just sort of clicked in and just and I kept getting reports from him, the sweetest man on the planet. I mean, he was such a nice man.
Amazing. What a great story.
Yeah, it was really very, very touching. But there's also lots that are kind of way more fun.
Like what?
Well, one of them was, he said to me, my wife has far more energy, and I'm the beneficiary. So yeah, there's lots like that. There's got to be some good athlete ones too, because the Juan Archuleta was a great one. He was an MMA fighter, but his story, and also we have a blog on this actually at our site, but his story was basically that he could go into the ring super high energy and super calm. And it makes a huge difference in reaction times and everything, because you maintain that calmness. And then he was sort of playing his game instead of just, always responding.
Yeah. And you had one of the athletes were in French Olympics last year. You were so excited. Who was that one?
That's
she
a great
actually
story.
Contributed to NanoVi.
Yeah, they called right before going to Paris. They were using it at a center, Dr. Moose in Texas, in Austin. And they had been using the NanoVi there, and they didn't want to go to Paris without it. And so it was Tara Woodall and Hunter. And Hunter was Paralympics. Tara's Olympic long jump. and they both won gold medals.
Oh my God, that's exciting! And
Pretty
I know,
much
and I know
only
they
because
quoted,
of nothing to do with training, coaching, none of that stuff. It was all, but it was really
I love
sweet. They're
that.
just, and they're so nice. They're such a great couple too.
Oh, that's so nice to hear these stories.
Yeah.
How does NanoVi complement other wellness practices or therapies?
Okay, so that's what I was saying. With all your other devices, it literally makes them better. It has to. It doesn't matter what's going on in the system, if it's nitric oxide, if it's molecular hydrogen, if it's PEMF, if it's red light, all of those things do something different, but proteins are involved in their work. And so if you augment with NanoVi, you'll get better outcomes, and they're measurable. Hyperbaric cryotherapy, especially hyperbarics, it's a measurable difference to them.
Interesting. You know what I'm using right now? I just got the hypoxic training.
Oh, I love that. I do
by
that.
Cellular. And it's in my house, and I love it too.
What's it called? What's yours?
It's company Cellular out of Germany. It's actually was designed by Soviet Unions back in the 50s, and they brought it in the late 80s into Germany, and now it's been restructured and re-engineered in Germany, and they just brought it here in the United States.
I'd love to know more about that. I use Cell Gym,
Okay.
and it's a beautiful machine, but I use it somewhere else.
Yeah, so this one is like that's a box, and you just lay for 45 minutes with the mask, and the device pumps this oxygen and trains you to go up in altitude all the way to the mountains, 5-10 minutes, and brings you down to sea level and trains you on sea level. And so it does that.
Yeah.
So I'm training on it right now.
It's depriving you of oxygen so that it kind of upregulates your system.
But it's totally different from what NanoVi is.
It is, but I'll do both too.
Because,
okay, since you brought it up earlier, that's another thing with age is you lose metabolic function, respiratory function, and that's actually one of the most important losses for when people, do very not well. It's because it's usually respiratory.
Yeah, it trains your mitochondria too. Like your lungs expands, your cardiovascular, and you have athletes are using those for performance as well. So they can go the distance, like runners. They can run faster.
Yeah, let me tie that in then. So the metabolic testing we talked about earlier is testing that metabolism in the system. This is a treatment device that helps you improve your metabolic health. And it does it differently than NanoVi. So again, they're complementary.
Yeah.
But just by going hypoxic, then your body's like, oh my gosh, I need more mitochondria. I don't have enough oxygen.
Right.
And
you go to it's called reoxia. You go to hypoxia, reoxia.
Yeah, and it upgrades your metabolic health.
Yeah. How much of the cellular health do you think is a genetic versus influenced by lifestyle and environment?
I personally, now I'm not an expert, everybody. I'm not this is just an opinion, a personal opinion. I think so little of it's genetic. There's certain things that they are genetic and you got to figure that part out. But your overall well-being, for the most part, is epigenetic. It's what genes you're turning on and off and how you're doing things in your system, which is hugely impacted by your lifestyle and, the choices you make.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing all these things.
Correct. I think, and my attitude is, like, I'm an optimist, but I think the body is this amazing repair and regeneration machine. Like it's just a miracle, everything it's capable of. So one thing we do is we might support it a bit and then get out of its way. And that's one thing I love about the way this works is it doesn't override any cellular functions. It's only supporting, and then the body knows what to do.
Yeah.
And I think the body can heal. Virtually
body definitely
anything.
Can heal from anything. I've had some great guests here who supposed to die in 1 month from crazy deadly cancer, and they're still alive 7 years later due to changing how they live their life, what they eat, what they do, using devices like this or many other things.
And what they think.
and what they think, of course. Everything is due to lifestyle, environmental changes, and our behaviors, our mental, hugely.
Yeah, I think it's just absolutely huge. And I had a very bad accident a very long time ago, and I was told I'd never use my right arm again.
Oh, wow.
And, it took a while, but you absolutely can repair things that on first brush might not seem repairable. Like to many neurologists three different neurologists didn't think it was repairable.
How long did it take you?
Oh, I hate to say.
And do you think that was a big part of kind of a rejuvenation?
Well, not NanoVi. This preceded NanoVi, but it is certainly part of my appetite for, improving overall health.
Yeah, like you want it so hard. You're like, I'll do anything, whatever it takes.
Yeah, I mean, if NanoVi
you believe in it that you will have that arm working again.
Correct.
Right.
I had to go that route. And I had a wonderful doctor, Stan Herring, who's with the Seahawks. He was with the Seahawks and Mariners and so on as a team doctor. But he just hung in there with me. It's like, well, as long as you want to try, I'll keep,
great. Have you done any
helping.
Stem cells yourself yet?
I have not.
How do you view aging? And what's let's talk about that. This is interesting.
I view aging
What's your philosophy on
up close.
aging?
I see it very much. I view aging in the mirror.
In which way? Do you say to yourself, "Wow, I'm so gorgeous and young"?
Yeah, I feel like I'm fine with. Like I think I'm like everybody else. You just want to feel good and be, healthy and so on. I feel like I have a lot more to do, and so therefore I would like to have more runway. But it's not my biggest thing is to think about how to live longer at this point. I think only really about how to optimize things as best I know how. And so to set myself up for an active, healthy life for however long I'm around.
Yeah.
But I would have felt differently like when I had little kids, but having grown children, they're completely independent and they're fine. And so I don't feel like, I have to cling and try to hang in for a couple more years or anything.
Right. Now you're on your own and trying to do the best that you can. And we're in such a beautiful space. In longevity, in biohacking, we see so much. Like even myself, I entered this world about 3-4 years ago, and I'm just mesmerized by everything.
Yeah.
And I have myself, I'm constantly buying this and that and trying all the different things, and they do work.
Yes.
Everything literally works.
Yes, and then it can be overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming, but then you kind of start saying, okay, what really is important for you at the moment? So, right, you test yourself, you see where you're at in every level, and then you go, okay, so now it's alterations.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I see it.
I find that if I did everything I feel like I should do because I know it's beneficial, that's all I would do. And I work long days.
Yeah,
I have a day job.
And you travel so much too, constantly. How do you cope with traveling so much and staying, being healthy? And I know you love meditating and.
I do stay healthy, but I don't think I cope that well.
No, you don't, huh? You get stressed out?
No, yesterday I had breakfast with Serena Poon. She travels daily, and she just does it with such poise and without resistance. That's what you have to do. I do it with resistance. It's like, oh no,
it's another travel day, right? I love it.
That's why I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you in the year that you've been inviting me because it's like, oh.
Well, I mean, I see you at the conferences everywhere, but you haven't been to
come to LA to the studio, and it's like, oh, I'd have to add a trip.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I need to figure out, how to have better diet. And I heard JJ Virgin say that she takes a kettle with her, and I'm like, oh, that's a good idea.
But kettle to cook.
Yeah, to make hot,
her own.
You can,
like water, like bone broth. But each hotel has a kettle. I actually request, but I mean they bring like a plastic one, which I don't like boiling my water in a plastic kettle. But most hotels, they all have kettles. You just have to request, because I do bring my own teas. And I do bring my own bone broth. So in the morning before I go to conference, I do bone broth and I bring my Prolon almond coca spread. I take the 2 tablespoons of that. It's enough fat and antioxidants. With my bone broth, I run all day on energy.
I see. I have to do better. But anyway, we digress. That's an area where I could definitely improve, because what I do is I end up going back to Seattle, where I'm from, and I regroup, and then I hit the road again. And so it's But I want to say also about this industry and longevity, healthy aging, biohacking, this whole thing, you can wrap it all into one. In fact, we were involved in the industry before when it was integrative medicine and functional medicine, but they're really doing what people might call, some of these hacks and so on. But one thing that's really amazing about the industry is the people. The people are great. And that makes it all, so much more fun and invigorating, and it's uplifting.
It is.
Instead of being exhausting.
No, it's true. Like every time I go to a conference, I'm like a bee. I'm like, oh my God, I just feed on this amazing energy. And I also give a lot of energy, but it's like so inspiring just to learn even from these individuals like yourself and everybody else, to see what else can we bring to upgrade our lives. And also I go out there and then I help others to people, to give advice and my clients and through podcasts and whatever. So it's pretty amazing. I love it.
And we've been in it a long time, which also helps because people know, even if they don't have their own NanoVi, they know NanoVi. And that really helps for going to conferences and things versus if you just, went for the first time.
You always have booths full of people constantly sitting there and... we have some like Jim Quick is one of my favorite people, and he tends to, be sure to visit, and so he'll draw a crowd. It might not always be NanoVi. That's okay.
But it's really
he has the device too.
Oh yeah, he's got a few. He's just such a wonderful person. But with brain function, which is something we should talk about really because it's so important. But with brain function, it's a very noticeable difference.
In which way?
Well, all of them, but the endurance. So how long you can stay focused and concentrated, your clarity, executive decision making, the brain training is measurable. That they do better if they're using NanoVi at the same time, which is why Dave Asprey has them at 40 Years of Zen. Okay. So during CAP training, when they're really stressing the brain, they use NanoVi at the same time.
Interesting, because I do train my brain right now with Vital Brain Health, and we're fixing certain pathways. When I do my sessions, oh my God, I'll be using NanoVi together. Yeah. This is...
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the endurance, how long you can stay focused is very... very clear. And I get that it's interesting from medical doctors because they're often forced to do stuff, they have to get it done.
Yeah.
They can't just quit and not bother today. And so how long they can stay focused on that and concentrated is noticeable to them.
Interesting. So everyone should have in their office, on their table.
Exactly.
While they're sitting and working.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
And any executive, and I think that's why so many of them are exos that are sold. They're for executives because they can literally do a better job.
Yeah.
And also, when you concentrate that much, you're burning a lot of oxygen in your brain, and you're going to have a lot of oxidative damage.
Yeah, and that's how we get tired.
Exactly. So you want to repair that as fast as possible.
A lot of people feel foggy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fog is a big one.
Big one, yeah.
That's it's used for, but that you want to keep that working because you don't want any of the damage to accumulate in your brain. You don't want it anywhere, but especially not in your brain.
Right. So when you talk to Dave Pascoe, he said that he's literally using as he's sleeping. What noticeable changes that he's noticed in himself after using every night for such long periods of time?
I'm going to get you, introduce Dave to you.
I'm so fascinated with him.
And you have to ask these questions of him directly. He did notice a big difference. And Dave is, if people don't know Dave Pascoe, he's a a person that's highly optimized for longevity to the point that his biological age was showing up as better than Brian Johnson, who was spending, $3 million a year or something on longevity. So Dave Pesco kind of got a lot of attention because he was sort of doing it.
Yeah, and he's 65. He looks incredible. He looks like a 40-year-old guy. I mean, like, and I'm sure his biological age on, if he tests, it's
really low. But it's not the lowest person in the world, but it's really it's one of the best. And so the thing that I loved about him was that if he could notice the difference, that's amazing because he's already highly optimized. So just layering on the NanoVi made a difference. And then I'm also guessing Dave is pretty tuned in because some people won't notice it when it's helping, but I think he's probably pretty tuned in to what is better and worse because he's measuring stuff and he knows his workout routines and so on. And that's one thing for athletes. It will help for performance if you use it before. And one study that's double-blind, placebo-controlled shows 17% less blood lactate after heavy exertion when you use NanoVi before. It's huge if you're in a lactate-producing sport.
Right.
And then the recovery afterwards varied from 10 to 17 faster recovery response. And that was also double-blind, placebo-controlled. And so for somebody like Dave Pesco, if he's very tuned in, he'll notice the performance difference because his body's is managing being overstressed better, basically. So that means you might go longer, you might lift heavier, you might go faster, but they're all metrics that can be measured.
That is so cool. If you could introduce NanoVi to a specific community or demographic that hasn't widely adopted it yet, what would it be and why?
I've thought about this recently. It would be a broad use for brain health. That's the biggest area, I think, that there's almost a certain urgency. And we see it in the incidence of neurodegenerative diseases and the increase. And I would say, take care of your brain, start young, and take care of it regularly.
Yes.
Because this isn't going in a good direction, and we have a lot of stresses and strains on our body. So if there's something that helps you repair that damage in the brain, keeps you fit, makes you sharper, clearer, and so on, that's where I think it should be.
Yeah, I've noticed myself, even in the past 2 years, the way my focus, the way my productivity is just skyrocketed. And as you see myself, I've been unstoppable. And I'm like, I'm a mom, I still have to do all these house routines, but yet I perform like nothing else. Even like my team, they're like, before they'll be like, let's go, let's do like, come on. I'll be like, I'm like a little bit like, not behind, but I was like, I'll do it tomorrow. And now I'm like, hello, everyone. What are we doing? They're like, you're unstoppable. You just got to chill a little bit. But I think because I'm doing all this stuff, like my performance in every level from brain clarity to focus to like everything is just like, wow. And organization too. It became to the point. And clarity as well, the mind were like how do I see now certain things? It's like incredible.
And you're tuned in too, which helps because then you can, you just know what your baseline is and where you can take it.
No, it's fun. It's totally fun. Do you think, what's an underrated longevity hack that some people should be paying attention to?
Breathing. I mean, we all breathe.
Yeah.
We don't last very long without breathing, but I think we could do a lot more with breath, with that metabolic health and so on. And so I'm thinking of things that are free, right?
Right, yeah.
That's what I think is most important if you can. And I would say people need tools like this more because of all the other things that are coming into play to mess up our health. right? In a perfect world where everything's super clean and it's, we're not stressed and so on, then your body would do much better on its own
Yeah.
without help.
Right. But unfortunately, we're living in such a busy, crazy
Yeah.
environment now these days. Everything, even having cell phones and computers, and that brain never shuts off. It's constantly working. It's like
And breath work is one thing. I think breath work and obviously meditation, but breath work can be a kind of meditation because it takes your focus off of thinking about something else, which is enough to give it a little break.
Yeah.
And but I think that a lot can be done to build up metabolic health just with breath work.
Yeah, breath work is amazing. I use one of the. Are you using any of the apps, or you do it naturally?
I do both, but mostly I'd like to listen to the apps.
The apps,
Because some of them, there's and if you're not familiar with breath work, you can do, the ones that calm you down so you go to sleep. And there's the ones that get you fired up and you feel like you're buzzing and so on. So there's all different ways to use breath to create a certain condition that you're looking for.
It's beautiful. I love narration Nirjak. I think that's He has this app, and he goes into 45 minutes to an hour long breath work.
Oh God, I don't know it lasts.
Like he's DJing, has this music to go with the breath, and literally you go into this ecstasy, right? This amazing. If you do it before you go to sleep, your body just goes. One time I did this 1 hour long session and I lay down and I couldn't understand. I thought it was an earthquake because I live in Palm Springs, and I was like, oh, it's another earthquake. Like the bed shook. And I'm like, hold on a second. It's not an earthquake. It's my body having out of experience and shaking, moving, not like shaking, but like this has the subtle of energy out of body experience. I was like, wow.
Okay, I have to try
that
this.
was really incredible. And then sometimes I do it in the morning just to get this set the day ahead. And that is also creates a beautiful day too.
So that can be like the breath of fire is one of those. And it's just 5 minutes, but man, it really gets the blood pumping. But I want to know about the out-of-body stuff.
Yes.
But anyway, that's sort of
Like
another
that.
digression. But I think that a lot of these things are free. Another one is I don't go to cryotherapy, but I do a cold shower every day.
Okay.
And one of the things there is my friend and mentor, Jim Quick, who said, do something hard, do things that are difficult to do. And in the winter in Seattle, it's difficult to take a cold shower.
Yeah.
And
we have to it's called the stressing your body to different environments.
Yes.
And either it's a heat or cold. And now I've learned that modality. And I'm like, sometimes when I feel cold, I'm like, oh, I like this cold because it's stressing my body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I tweak my brain to liking it.
Yeah.
Or if it's hot, like it's super hot and you're sweating, you're like, no, it's stressing my body. I like it. Yeah.
Well, and those are cold shock and heat shock proteins that are being initiated. So you're going to fire them up and then use NanoVi to help them work better.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a great combination.
This is so amazing. So if you could design the ultimate wellness retreat, what would it include?
Oh, wow. A lot of amazing people, or not too many, because I'm kind of a bit of an introvert.
I couldn't tell
I
that
think it
because
was
you're always out and about in the area.
I think it's called, I just learned to call it ambivert because but I don't want to be in a room with 60 people. Nobody's looking around at who's there. But I would have, a dozen really amazing people at a retreat.
So you can connect on a personal level.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Amazing food. And really clean, so you don't even think about, I don't want to think about what I'm eating. I want somebody else to do that when I'm retreating. And then I love hot and cold, but I love water. So I'd have to have that there, like a hot tub type area that you can kind of stretch in and so on, and cold plunge. And then all these other little tools.
Yeah.
I like them all, and I kind of cycle through them. And there's some I'd love to have that I don't have.
Yeah, I always bring, I do retreats.
Yes.
I haven't done retreat this year, or last year I did one early last year. And I always bring your device and many other ones. And yes, I always create smaller, up to 10 people.
I love that
Very
because then you
private.
can also have stations. So they're doing the NanoVi.
Right, and they would switch around. We have yoga,
Yeah.
we have massages, we have all kinds of fun stuff. And then I teach them all about how to, become healthier.
I love it. No, that's
Come
exactly
to my
what,
next retreat, please.
well, the yoga.
And I'll bring the new hypoxic training device.
Oh, that's a really good
Yeah.
one to have there. Although the yoga scares me.
Yeah, well,
It's
you
like
don't
you're
have to.
supposed to do
You don't
what
have
with
to
your
do
body?
yoga. So, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self at the start of your career, what would it be?
Ask. That's for all the women out there. We tend not to ask. We tend to even assume that people would well, he or she should know that would benefit me, and they would just offer it. And it's like, nah, just ask politely, but ask.
Always ask.
if
Yeah,
there's
that's what my
something-
mom taught me since I was a very early age. I remember at maybe 3 or 4, she would always say, always ask.
See, and you are delightful. You're charming. You're gracious, and you ask. You can be. You don't have to be. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think some of us were raised to just be a bit
Shy, quiet,
shy about
don't
asking
ask.
for
Yeah.
things for ourselves.
Right.
I'm a tiger if I'm asking for things
Yeah.
for someone else. I'm very good at that.
Right. And she always said, people can say no, but if they say yes, bingo.
Exactly.
So there's no one's going to bite you. She said, no one's going to bite you. Just
You
ask.
had a brilliant mother.
I know, she did. What kind of a legacy do you hope to leave behind, both as an entrepreneur and as a person?
Well, I think they're both the same. What I don't really care about a legacy that sort of celebrates me, but what I think is most important is, and what I'd love to do more of, is helping entrepreneurs or individuals or other individuals. They don't have to be entrepreneurial. I just met the most amazing woman doing AI at the UN and looking at policy and AI, and it's like, that's not an entrepreneur. But I feel like the most important thing to do is to lift others so that they can go out and you can kind of get this multiplier effect. If I helped 3 people that helped 3 people that helped 3 people sort of thing. And that's what I think is the most important thing to be doing.
And you do a fabulous job because you do really kind of took me under your wing as well, to tell the truth. Since first time I saw you speaking on stage, of course, about your device. A year later, I personally met you. And you always been like pushing me and saying, hey, go meet that person. And you always talk sweet about me. You always inviting me to conferences and giving me an extra ticket if you have. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And you always kind of like give me advice, like a wise woman.
Yeah.
And I always chit-chat with you. And it's always so sweet. And I really appreciate your support on every level because we do need that in a sense. Every one of us, needs to lift up no matter how smart or, successful we are. We all need that kind of a support.
And I think some of it's just the introduction to identify the right person that's going to be beneficial and make those introductions so it's beneficial to both the people. And I just think that's so important. And I have been around a while, so I know quite a lot of people.
Yeah. And but a lot of people, wouldn't do that. They're selfish and you're not. And
Oh. That's odd.
Yeah, you think so, but you're beautiful. You're beautiful soul, you're beautiful heart. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And I really appreciate knowing you and being in this space and having you also call my friend. And thank you so much for coming and sharing this beautiful knowledge and have this device sharing with the world so that way we can, feel and feel better and look better.
Oh, I love it.
And look
I love
younger.
it. It's such a pleasure.
That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoy, I enjoy every minute with you. So thank you.
Ravina, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights on cellular health and the science behind NanoVi. It's been fascinating to learn about how oxidative stress impacts our bodies and how NanoVi is helping people recover, perform better, and feel their best. For everyone listening, if you'd like to learn more about Ravina's work or how NanoVi can support your health journey, make sure to check on Eng3 Corporation's website and social media. All the links are in the description below.